Story by Royal Blue Sword. The trail ends and the dogs begin. A few months ago, my friends and I went to a hill station for 3 days. On the second morning, one of my friends woke me up at 4 a.m. We wanted to catch the sunrise from a viewpoint deep in the forest. Our third friend refused to get up, so it ended up being just the two of us. It was freezing, and we held our hoodies close as we started walking. The path was marked but manless. The forest was thick. There were tall trees almost falling on the path on both sides, and this strange silence that made the sound of every rustle of the leaves beneath our feet echo. We followed the signboards, thinking we were close to the viewpoint, but every time we checked the map, it somehow seemed to move further away. Then, I felt like something was watching us from the woods, but nothing we could see. When we checked the map again, we realized the route actually passed right next to a Hindu crematorium and a Parsi graveyard hidden behind the trees. That's when the atmosphere changed for us completely. Some parts of the road had weak lights, but most of it was swallowed by darkness. We thought about turning back, but being that deep in already, we were scared of getting lost. That's when 4 dogs appeared out of nowhere. At first we panicked, thinking they'd attack us, but they didn't. They just started walking with us, 2 in front and 2 behind, as if guarding us. They would stop when we stopped and bark whenever they heard something in the forest. After a while, the road just ended. Beyond it was pure blackness, like stepping into nothing. The dogs started barking wildly into that emptiness, but there was nothing visible. Their reaction was so fierce, it was enough to tell us to not go any further. That's when we decided to turn back. The same 4 dogs walked with us the whole way back, right till we reached the town center. The streets were empty, not a single person was around. We waited there, and the dogs waited with us, sitting quietly beside us like they knew we weren't safe yet. Finally, around 6 a.m., a shop opened. We bought some biscuits and fed the dogs. Just then, a man on horseback came by. He said he could escort us to the viewpoint. There was finally some light now. We turned around to look at the dogs, but they were gone, vanished completely in mere moments. When I told my mom about it after coming home, she got really upset. She said that at night there are things, dark, sinister things, that roam freely. She looked at me and asked, "What if one of you had gotten possessed? You're only the 2 of you. What would you have done?" That question still gives me chills. I don't know what really happened back then, but I do know this. Those dogs weren't just dogs. Well, this story is all about the dogs. I believe they were your guardian angels, for both of you. There are a lot of stories about guardian angels where it appears like the rule of the universe is they have to possess a living being to exist in the material world. But then there are stories like this where they seem to have an ability to manifest themselves as spiritual entities, like the dogs. And obviously the dogs weren't real in the conventional sense because they vanished soon after, though you did feed them a biscuit. So what happened to the biscuit is my question. It's like if you could feed a ghost, what happens to the food mass? The food mass vanishes with them? Because that's removing matter from the universe. That's removing energy. You're not supposed to be able to do that. You can't remove or add it to the bulk net of the universe, as far as I understand it, as far as physics allows. It's energy is always conserved, and mass is just contained or constrained energy. That's one detail that I don't know a lot of people would think about, but it's just, where did the biscuits go? If they are indeed spiritual guardian angels. And then what is the rule? Why do sometimes it appears like guardian angels have to possess human beings or animals to help whoever they're protecting? And other times it seems like they can just take spiritual form. I don't know what the rules actually are. Maybe it's easier if they possess someone, but in a crunch, they can appear as spirits, and in this case it'd be 4 guardian angels. How many do people have? Maybe it's more than just 1 per person. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 10 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one involves colors. Let's get to it. Story by the best dumb butt. The Parish in the Void. I live on an island, which is technically a part of the United Kingdom. I left my job a few weeks ago, and last Friday, I had to drive my car around, literally anywhere, so the battery wouldn't die. I spontaneously went for a drive along my normal route to town, but the first car in front of me was immediately driving incredibly slowly, so I took a different route and decided to explore a part of the island that led to the opposite end. The first half of the route was perfectly normal. Everything looked as it normally did, and my car could barely make it up the mountain road, but it managed. At a certain point, and I'm not sure when, the road and my surroundings stopped being familiar. When I expected a sharp turn to come up ahead, it never did. I remember seeing a sign that said, Lahingige, and I chuckled for a moment, thinking I misread it, and it was probably a perfectly normal town name. It was just weird that I hadn't noticed it before, but not out of the ordinary. Eventually again, the road still didn't make sense, and when I was supposed to be entering a smaller town, I wasn't, and the road seemed to keep going on. I turned into a random road which I explicitly remember had a broken down windmill in a field, and did a semi-U-turn. I was the only person on the road, as it was working hours in the middle of the day. On the way back, I read the sign again, which read something like, entering the parish town something of Lahingige. I thought it was really funny that there wasn't any legible way of reading that other than how you think it sounds. I decided to stop at my parents' on my way home and talked about finding a job and such. Then the conversation shifted and I asked about the place because I wanted to know how to actually pronounce it. They said they'd never heard of it, and I really didn't think much of it and dismissed the subject. I only remember the name so well because I invited the dogs to visit me in Lahingige someday. I went home, did some random stuff, then decided to Google the place. It didn't exist. I went on to Google Maps, it's literally not a place. I found an old abandoned mine where I thought the windmill-like structure was, and it's not there either. Again, I've had weird things happen, but it's driving me a little bit crazy, as I have literally nothing to do. That I visited a place that doesn't seem to exist. I've checked the street view and the names of the streets, even with different spellings, and it's just weird that it's not there anywhere. I don't mind being called crazy. Everyone's crazy sometimes, but it's just a bit weird is all. Let me know if you've had anything similar happen, or if you know of any similar accounts, as I'm definitely all ears. It's incredibly scary and misty outside, so I might try not visiting again until it's sunny. Story by Shrimps is Bugs, the Sepia Shortcut. This happened about 30 years ago in the Cedar Hill, Texas area. I don't know what kids do these days. Old lady from Titanic voice, but back in my day, the preteens and teens were partial to hanging out at malls and skating rinks. I was not a popular kid, and honestly, I didn't really bother trying to make friends because it seemed like a waste of time. I've always been more of a sit quietly by myself and draw bug types. Despite this, some girl from school that I wasn't even friends with invited me to her birthday party at the local skating rink. I felt obligated to go and thought I might even have fun if this didn't turn into a Carrie situation. I always considered that a real possibility. So I talked my mom into driving me there. It was early afternoon on a Sunday in the fall, right on the edge of winter. It was overcast and looked like it might rain. There weren't cell phones back then, so my mom just waited in the car for me while I went inside to party. I got bored really quickly, didn't know anyone, and the music was way too loud and overstimulating. I couldn't stop thinking about my lovely bed and reading a book whilst covered in purring sleepy kitties. So I walked around the rink a bit, ate a hot dog or something, and peaced out about 30 minutes later. I got back in the car, and we headed home the same way we came. We had driven this route plenty of other times, since the town is fairly small, and there are only so many routes to get to everything. At some point, the color changed. It snapped me out of my thoughts, because I thought the sun must have finally come out. But when I looked around, it was like the color of the air itself had changed. I don't want to call it sepia toned, but it was like everything was suddenly more earthy colors. The light that touched everything looked brownish orange. The colors of things were just off. The green on the car looked unusual. I wasn't concerned yet, because it was a classic car, so it made sense. But the more I looked around, every car was a classic car. That's when I started feeling kind of confused. Car show in town? Okay, maybe, but that doesn't explain all the classic cars in people's driveways. So then I thought, maybe we're in an older part of town or neighborhood that I had not seen before? But I thought we were on the usual path. I didn't remember my mom taking unusual turns or anything. So I asked her, did we get lost? That's when my mom gasped. She said something like, oh my God, you're seeing this too? This isn't right? What is happening? I barely got out, the cars, before the next weird thing happened. I can only explain it like a fade to white before a scene change. The sun started getting brighter and brighter, and we both looked up to see what was causing it, but couldn't see anything in the sky. It was too bright, so we looked back down at the road ahead and everything was suddenly normal again. Overcast, chilly, clouds, 90s cars, familiar route. We were just silent for a few seconds trying to process this. We said something to the effect of, what the heck? Followed by, I have no idea. Followed by, me neither. Just inexplicable. All these years later, and my mom and I don't really talk much anymore. We are just very different people, so there's not much to say. When we do get together over holidays or something, this experience inevitably comes up because it's this thing that happened to us that is so unbelievable that no one else would understand except us. It's become a touchstone to keep us bonded in some way, despite our differences. I always wondered how many other people drove through that stretch of 1940s or 50s that day in Cedar Hill in the 90s. There's no way it was just us. We're not like special time traveler people or anything. I'm not Sam from Quantum Leap running around helping people. I figured any others who experienced it would probably never tell anyone for fear of ridicule. But who knows? There has to be other people out there. And it can't hurt to ask. I just have so many questions. If this did happen to you, where were you that day? Were you in a car behind us on the road? Did our car look normal, or was it an old-timey too? Are you good at identifying makes and models, and can you tell me what year you think we drove through, based on the cars? Back in my day, we're all getting old like fossils now. That's just funny. But yeah, I was a quiet kid too. A lot of the first part of the story could be my own experience. I prefer just to be home, though for me it wasn't drawing bug types or anything. It was just playing on the computer. Like in 1997 or 8, I was like 8 or 9 years old at that time. Moving into closing in on double digits, but we had a computer and I would play this, it was like a tank game where you had to aim the artillery shell upwards and it would curve and land back down and you'd have to target the enemy tank. And that's just fun. You could change the size of the explosion of the artillery shell and deform the ground it was driving on, or the enemy would drive on, and I would just remember that specific game as being so much fun. I would definitely enjoy that more than going to a loud, overstimulating party with crazy noise and all. Too many people, too many voices. Just the idea of it is sending shivers down my spine. Well, that might be a bit extreme, but you get the idea. What I take about this story that I've heard other people mention this, that they think that the past was more colorful. I don't know if it's something to do with like the color receptor cones in our eyes becoming less sensitive or something, but the past I remember being more vibrant. But that's not necessarily a change of color. I guess in this case, do I remember it being more warm, like warm color? Yeah, but that might just be because at night, the street lamps and everything were were like a warm hue instead of the LEDs now, which are bright. And you can have LEDs programmed to be at that same color spectrum, but instead they just prefer this cold, sterile, hospital, blue-white that is just awful. It does keep you more alert, so I guess it's better for safety, but honestly I'd prefer just going back to the warmth of that, just almost like dim sun, like a sunset or sunrise. So much better. For the vibes, just an interesting glitch story to me, and I'm glad that you and your mom still talk about it. So many of these times with these stories, friends or parents, they don't talk about it, which just, I get it, it's crazy that it happens at all, but talk about it, bond over it, form a trauma bond if you have to, but talk about it, right? Story by Artist with a U. The Cartridge of Theseus. I've had a number of small glitches in my life. Nothing really worth sharing until this one. I have a very poor appetite, and after losing about 80 pounds and at a doctor's recommendation, I started to vape THC to help with my appetite. A few months ago, I bought a lemon vape, 1 gram. I used it for a little over a month until it was pretty much empty. I tend to keep old vapes in case I run out, since there's sometimes a touch left. Well, I hadn't really looked at the vape in about a month, but picked it up to see if there was a little left. It was full. Completely full, like just bought it full. I know I used that vape for over a month, and I know it was close to empty. I just couldn't believe it. I did not buy a new vape, I know this for sure. I am short on money, and the reason I looked for the old vape was that I couldn't afford a new one. There's no way to refill it, it's disposable, and I'm the only one in my household who vapes. So I've been using it again. At the moment it's about 3/4 full. This is one awesome glitch, honestly. Also, the appetite thing. I lost my appetite completely about 6 years ago. I have all sorts of medical tests, everything is normal. My HDL is so good, my doctor said she wants to bottle my blood and sell it. And I feel fine. I needed to lose a little weight, but now my BMI is 18. So I do have a referral to a GI doc, but none of my doctors are concerned, and neither am I. Story by Postmodern Mutant. The Great Workshop Heist. I guess I need to give you all some background on this, so it makes more sense than not. My girlfriend is a lead singer for a metal band, and I accompany her on a tour as a roadie. During the most recent tour, we ran into an unexpected toy and comic book fair at a mall where we were grabbing a quick snack. I build models as a hobby, and I found a couple at the fair I wanted. I FedExed them home, and I decided to build one of them yesterday since I had nothing better to do. As I was working on the final section, a piece disappeared out of the palm of my hand. I was picking up one of my glass files with my other hand to do some cleanup of nub marks when the weight of the piece stopped existing. It was a pretty large piece with a bit of weight, so it was noticeable. I initially thought maybe I'd dropped it, which didn't make sense because my hand was on top of my workbench and I just didn't notice. I looked around my workbench and I couldn't find it. That's when I realized I would have heard it clatter to the hardwood floor that I have in my workshop. I tore apart my workshop looking for this piece all night. I moved my workbench, moved all the shelving and display cases, and moved my toolboxes out of the way that are all the way across the workshop. I can't find the blasted thing, it's just gone and I can't explain where it went. Story by Vengeance Unicorn. Ever After, Twice. Hello. So I have a collection of sentimental things that I have kept from the past, stuff that reminds me of old friends and good memories. I have kept a couple of old VHS tapes and DVDs that I'm attached to, books and photos, that kind of stuff. So one of the movies is my old VHS copy of Ever After, which I used to watch all the time with my best friend on my little TV and VHS combo player I got for Christmas one year. Another one is a DVD copy of Little Miss Sunshine that I kept because my ex-boyfriend left it at my house one time, and he was my first love, and it was like one of the only things I kept. Side note that I also remember just dramatically whole arm flinging a copy of James Blunt's You're Beautiful CD Frisbee style out of the car window while sobbing on the highway too. It was a very dramatic breakup for me. So I have kept these two movies for years, along with my VHS copy of Beauty and the Beast. Right. A bit of backstory. I got divorced over the pandemic and moved to a new house. I went from a big house to a tiny house, so everything got packed and stacked in the basement until I was able to sort through things. I packed 2 movies. I unpacked 4 movies, and I cannot understand why. I kinda set it aside for a while, because thinking about that makes me feel like I'm about to go off the rails a little bit, and I don't think there really is any answer. But I swear to you that, to the best of my honest knowledge, that I would never have replaced these, and my ex-husband did not even own any hard copy movies. He just streamed everything. I just don't know where the second ones came from. Couple of things that I think are interesting is that the wear on the VHS tape jacket is so freaking similar, and also the barcode numbers on the back are identical to each other. I don't know if that is common for the same movie to always have the same barcode. Tried to look it up a bit, but didn't find a whole lot of conclusive info. Has anyone else ever had something sentimental replicate? Story by Human Agency 9870. Assault loan at 2 a.m. I live in an apartment block that was built back in the 80s. It doesn't have much of a history, and we're the first owners of the flat, or my nan and granddad were to be exact. Not even a pet has died in this place. Even so, ever since I was a little kid, I felt some kind of presence here. But since I didn't live here for most of my life, I eventually just chalked it all up to my kid's imagination. Until recently, that is. This happened about a year ago. I'd just gotten home from work and headed to the kitchen to make myself a late dinner. When I'm cooking, I usually chuck on a show or a podcast in the background and wear headphones so I don't bother anyone with the noise. That night, I was listening to some story when I suddenly thought I heard a noise over my headphones. I paused the video and listened properly. Sure enough, there was a knock at the front door. It was about 2 a.m, a bit late to be asking to borrow some salt. Besides, they were banging on it with enough force to break the door down. I should probably mention that our town's a bit rough. We've got migrants, addicts, and alcoholics living nearby. Because of that, we tend to keep to ourselves and don't really know any of them. So it's pretty unlikely anyone would be coming to us for help at that time of night. Still, I held out hope that it was just one of the neighbors. We helped out one of them once, when he'd lost his keys, but I knew for a fact he'd been dead for over a year. I walked closer to the door. If it was a person trying to get my attention, they wouldn't just be knocking, they'd be ringing the doorbell too, right? Right. Except no one was ringing the bell, and as I got closer, the banging just got more frantic. And then, all of a sudden, I got this incredibly strong feeling that it was my nan at the door. I could see it so clearly in my head. Her standing there, all sleepy in her white nightie, just waiting for me to open up. But I knew for a fact that Nan was home. She'd gotten back around half an hour past 10 and was fast asleep. I didn't get any closer. I didn't look through the peephole. I had this feeling that I'd see my Nan, but it wouldn't be my Nan, you know? I went back to the kitchen and tried to calm myself down. I put my headphones back in, pressed play on the video, and just pretended like nothing was happening. After a bit, I started to think it had gone quiet. I took my headphones off. Yep, silence. No one was knocking. I finished up what I was doing and went to my room. That night, I didn't dare go near the front door or even the bathroom, which is right beside it. The knocking came back after a while. It happened a few more times, but the second I stopped being scared, it would instantly go quiet. The last time it happened, it only lasted a few seconds because I just told myself I wasn't scared of it. This whole pattern seemed pretty weird, so I decided to tell my Nan about it. She told me that a woman used to live in the flat next door who died a long time ago. There was something strange about her, because after she died, every tenant who moved into that flat either suffered or died. That neighbor we helped out, he was living in her old flat. Nan said it was probably that woman, her spirit. She told me to call out to her if I ever heard the knocking again, but I never have. Also, P.S. I used a translator for the story as I live in Russia and don't speak English fluently. Story by Individual Caramel 182. An Error in the Wetlands. I live in the eastern Michigan area, which has forests just broken up by roads and farmland. So when I was young, I very often hiked through the woods with my sister. We always stopped when we hit the creek, but one day we decided to cross it. So we found a log and crossed the creek using it, then walked back up the hill on the other side. The creek was in a wetland basin type of area, so we eventually walked on flat land for a bit. Then I found this fenced off area on the edge of a hill. It was an old metal wire fence that was rusted. Inside was only a plastic slide, a decaying shed, and other metal junk. So I went over this fence and I looked down from the hill and I saw this winding road with some cars going across. I thought it was cool and that I had just hit the end of this trail. Then I hiked back. Later, I told my dad about it, and he said we had trespassed when we crossed the creek and would never hike that way again. It was years. I got curious and decided to search up where I ended up on that hike back then by looking at a map. And I couldn't have ended up on the road. The area was surrounded by farmland and dirt roads. The road I reached was paved. It was simply impossible to reach a road. So I decided to ask my sister if she remembered this hike, and she said, "Yeah, I remember ending up at the road." There were some things so wrong now that I look back at it. Like, there was no house near the storage area, nor should there be a hill. It's a flattish area aside from the wetland basin. I really wonder what would have happened that day if I went down the hill to the road. I considered it, but decided it would be a pain to get back up. It's just odd. Yeah, I would have explored on that road, I think. It makes you wonder. Liminal space, liminal literally means like a transition, a change between states. So you imagine like the backrooms, that's a liminal space, but you're trapped there. But there's other liminal space phenomenon. The idea like a space-time portal is kind of, the portal itself is a transition point to a different universe or different place in the current universe, mostly on the planet as far as we know. So if you went down to that road, that you were already in the liminal space, or you had transitioned, would you have been able to get back? Would the road be in itself like a liminal space, where the road is never ending, and you were not supposed to go down there or be there at all? The fence was rusted, so whoever lived there or had secured it wasn't there anymore. Also reminds me of the dead server instances, where I believe in some cases when you die or you're, for whatever reason, transition to a different universe, there can be a buffer area, like a waiting room, you could think, where you just have to, for whatever reason, they can't transfer you. Maybe because a distance to the other server is too long. Maybe the data transfer is too long. Maybe there's just too many transfers happening at that one point in time, and so you have to wait. It's like if you're downloading a game, but too many people are downloading it, the data, there's just a limit on how much data can be transferred. I imagine even in the real world, there would be a limit. So something like that. Maybe this was just a dead pocket, but you were transitioned to a different point on the planet in that server. So many interesting questions, but it does give eerie vibes no matter what. Story by Tropical Pixies, the Mini Cooper of Cali. I live in California, and I swear on everything I love that what I'm about to describe actually happened right now, which makes it scarier. It's broad daylight at 4:30 p.m. I was driving through a neighborhood I didn't know well, literally just driving. I turned into a neighborhood office, thinking there would be an out on the other end, trying to find my way back out. A few streets ahead of me, I saw a black Mini Cooper convertible turn onto the street ahead of me. I figured I'd follow since they clearly knew the area better than I did and assumed they were going to another out. Again, people are gonna ask why I didn't just use my Apple Maps. Look, I was literally just vibing. I was looking at the houses. I'm sure everyone drives through neighborhoods looking at the cute houses too. So I kept a steady distance behind them. Nothing strange, no weird driving, like they were driving normally. Just a normal car leading the way out. I watched them reach the end of the street and make a right turn. We kept going straight toward the same intersection. My mom was like, okay, we must be at the end, and I was like, since we saw them turn, we can turn here too. Except when we got there was no turn, no street, just a dead end. It was a round with a fence around it, and if you know Cali, it was a mountain with shrubs and wild weeds. Not a misjudgment, it was a dead end. No driveway, no alley, no hidden road, no time for the car to reverse or pull into a house, nothing. But I saw that Mini Cooper turn. I watched the car turn around the corner. I know what I saw, and there was absolutely nowhere for it to go. The closer we got, the more wrong it felt. My brain kept trying to make sense of it, like maybe I misremembered. Maybe the street was angled weird. Maybe there was a driveway I didn't notice, but no. It was a dead end, again, a dead end. A dead end where a car had just turned. I'm not someone who jumps to paranormal conclusions or glitches, but this shook me. I can't stop replaying it. It seems like I watched someone clip out of existence. Has anyone else in California or anywhere else ever experienced something like this? It's spooky as hell. Story by Princess 1776, An Angel's Cloud. Hello all. I had an experience last night that can only be explained as a glitch. I apologize if I provide too many details, but I too am trying to process this. Tonight, I left my house at 8 p.m. to run errands. I drove to a large shopping plaza a little over 20 minutes from me that hosts a lot of different stores, such as Lowe's, Sam's, etc. As I drove, I noticed the clouds were more overcast looking than I expected. I had been following the weather closely over the past couple of days in preparation for the party at our house, and I knew we were due for rain and potential storms, but not until midnight. When I got to the plaza, I decided to go to Michael's first. I passed the Dollar Tree as I pulled into the parking spaces at Michael's. I had forgotten there was a Dollar Tree there, so I made a mental note to go there after Michael's. I was in Michael's for under 10 minutes. I only needed one thing, which I found pretty quickly. I checked myself out and went to leave. As I walked towards the doors waiting to exit, I saw it was raining. I stood there for a few seconds surprised at how much it had rained since my time in the store. When the doors opened, I expected to hear the rain, but it wasn't raining, just the ground was wet. I thought maybe the doors to Michael's were just darker, and that perhaps I had thought I saw rain. The parking lot was indeed wet. I left Michael's and turned to walk towards the Dollar Tree. I looked at the sky again and saw a cloud that looked like an angel's hair. I entered Dollar Tree. I was in Dollar Tree for less than 5 minutes. When I left the Dollar Tree, everything was dry. The parking lot, cars, etc. No rain, not a drop of water anywhere. I was immediately freaked out, as the amount of time I was in the store wasn't enough to dry up all the rain. I thought I was breaking down, perhaps because I've been under so much stress. I called my dad to tell him what happened. He told me it sounded like a glitch. I knew of glitches, but didn't think I'd ever experienced one. Now time for the jokes of the day. In England, it's called a lift, but in America, it's called an elevator. I guess people are just raised differently. I sat down for dinner at a restaurant, and the waiter asked me, "Do you want to hear today's special?" I replied, "Sure, why not?" He smiled and said, "Today's special." I'm getting stronger with old age. I can now lift $100 worth of groceries with one hand. Oh boy, won't be too long and you can lift 1,000 with one hand. My God. I won $10 million in a lottery and decided to donate a quarter of it to charity. Now I just have to figure out what to do with the other $9,999,999.75. That's what he did. He gave them a quarter. What is the difference between a well-dressed man on a bicycle and a poorly dressed man on a tricycle? Attire. Alright, more glitches up here, check them out. See you next time.